All right, everybody, welcome to episode 159 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with the co-host with the most, Drew at DR underscore PRA. Drew, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. Getting to the end of our season here and wrapping some things up here as well. And just I can't believe Christmas is 10, just over 10 days away.
Yeah, it's so funny because we get all amped up about we get amped up right after the Super Bowl, just wanting the next fantasy season to start. And man, it just you blink and we're already done with in most leagues the fantasy regular season. So it'll be fun to talk about things we saw, things we didn't see, um, and things like that. But before we go into that, let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly from week 14. I can't that's such a big number, 14. Uh Drew, dealer's choice. Would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
I can go first.
All right.
You got to find,
Who find the notes?
got to find the stat line. Not a massive fantasy week, but if you started him, you're probably pleased with the outcome. But what a story for Brock Purdy this week, huh? Amazing to see Mr. Irrelevant broke a couple of or set a couple of precedents there with what I think he was the first one to ever score a touchdown, do it against Tom Brady, which I don't know if I read this right or not, but it sounded like his family had bought tickets a few weeks ago already, just hoping to come and watch Brady play, and then for that to turn out to be his first NFL start. Just some emotional scenes from the game, and then I don't know if you had a chance to listen to any of the press conference and the interviews afterwards from different teammates, guys on both sides of the ball. Shanahan is just another one of those, similar to like a Mike White, just how it works out. You love to see these underdogs, guys that nobody expected to really get a real shot anywhere. And what a game, overcame injury to Debo along the way. Just had some incredible plays where he was able to extend and get the ball to playmakers, and ran for a touchdown or two, threw for a couple. So again, not crushing the stat sheet, but what a great week for him and his family, and something that they'll never forget moving forward. So just a feel good for the week for me, I think.
I love the comparison you made to Mike White. Isn't it funny how, you know, in Mike White's case, Mike White was a backup. Maybe he was third stringer because technically Joe Flacco played those first few games when
He did.
Zach Wilson got hurt. So maybe he is technically a third stringer too, but he comes out there, Brock Purdy comes out there, and it's amazing how they can just get the team to rally around them. And obviously, there's a whole ton of things going on in the locker room that none of us ever see. But to just kind of like be like, all right, I mean, could you imagine at your job, you have your third manager in what 3 months, and that's the guy that gets everybody going, gets your sales department pumped up, get your contracts team just firing contracts off left, right, and center. No matter what your business or industry is, but and that's the guy who kind of gets everybody out of their seats, gets them excited. I mean, we would think
Yeah.
that would be nuts. We would be like, man, what? But in the NFL, these guys are doing it, and good on them. I mean, that can't be an easy position, knowing that you weren't the first option, you weren't even the second option. You were the third option, and to just go out there with all the confidence in the world and just
Yeah.
do what you've been doing your whole life. I didn't expect it from Brock Purdy. I'm not going to lie, but he balled out. I actually watched the majority of that game, and didn't have anything but happiness for him the entire time. So that's a good one. For my good, I am gonna go with someone who did light up the old stat sheet, so to speak. My boy, um, during the off season, I felt like I was on an island talking about this guy, Trevor freaking Lawrence. 30 for 42, 368 yards, 3 touchdowns. All right, well, 3 passing, and he ran one in two. I was saying this during the offseason. Just get this guy something better than Marvin Jones and DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, and you'll see what's going on. And by the way, Christian Kirk, yeah, we knew about him, but he was never a superstar. It wasn't AJ Brown going to the Eagles in that trade. We were like, hey, this is an upgrade, but this isn't, an elite guy. Zay Jones had a little success at the end of last season with the Raiders. Was never a big time guy. Evan Ingram, me like many told tons of jokes about Evan Ingram, and he is turning these guys into legitimate players in the league. Not all pros, but he is turning them into legitimate players in this league. And I want to give him his damn credit because nobody else was really doing it. We all told him, we all said he was done, right? 1 year with the worst coach in NFL history, and he was done. He was a bust. He couldn't do it. And he balled out. And by the way, this wasn't a game against the Texans. This was a game against the Tennessee Titans, the number 1 team in the AFC South. And you can make fun of the AFC South all you want. I will. But this was not a team that Jacksonville was in a position to dominate. And they dominated that team. Yes, a lot of defensive turnovers. I was watching this game as well. But Trevor Lawrence was turning those turnovers into points. We see teams get interceptions, pick up fumbles all the time, and what happens? 3 and out. 4 plays, nothing happening. We see it all the time. And Trevor Lawrence, I think, had like 20 points off of turnovers. So when they were getting him the ball, he was putting it in the end zone. So Trevor Lawrence, that is my good for week 14. Drew, we had a good time. We talked about some of the good, but let's talk about some of the bad from week 14.
Yeah, not a great week to be a top-end running back. Saquon struggled. DeAndre Swift, who we all, I think, had high hopes for, has been more down than up this year. But a guy that I think you and we've got in at least one league, who has been very steady for the last few seasons, Nick Chubb, going 14 for 34. He did get a couple of catches, so if you're in PPR, he was able to raise the floor a little bit there. But divisional game, it was an opportunity for him to come in and help carry the load a little bit there. And I know there are some folks that were depending on him. I know in one league I was depending on Saquon and Swift, and they all let us down this week. But I think when you look at what the opportunity was for Nick Chubb in the division game there, that was particularly disappointing to see for me.
Yeah. I love Nick Chubb. I've loved Nick Chubb since day one. He is on a contender that I have, which makes me love him even more. And that was hard to watch. It's funny, on the topic of the Browns, that after their game last week, Deshaun Watson's first start, the offensive coordinator after that game immediately came out and said, "We're not going back to Jacoby Brissett." And it's kind of looking at this offense and going, was it running better under Jacoby Brissett? And I get it. Deshaun hasn't played in 2 years. It's a hard ask to say, hey, after 2 weeks, you need to be back in prime form and playing at the elite level you played at before everything happened. But I think we were expecting a little bit more from this team than what they've given the last 2 weeks. And the Browns are stuck now because they're paying that man a whole lot of money. And it is not easy to put Brink's truck's worth of money on the bench. But I guess the good news is Jacoby Brissett couldn't hold it together to get them in a position to be in the playoffs. So they can just run Deshaun Watson out for the rest of the season, no harm, no foul, because it's not like they have a playoff berth on the line. But it'll be very interesting next year when he starts all the games. If he's not firing on all cylinders the last couple of games of this season, going to the next season,
there'll be some questions.
There'll be some questions. But you had a bad that was a running back. I had a bad that was a running back. And this name might sound familiar based off of my good. My bad is Travis Etienne, the running component of that Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And you would think that a team that scores 36 points, the running back is going to be involved. The main running back, the main guy, he's going to be involved. He's going to be doing his thing, chewing up clock at the end of the game, all that jazz, right? 17 rushing attempts. That's a lot of rushing attempts. 32 yards. That's not a lot of rushing yards at all. That's less than 2 yards an attempt. There were no touchdowns to go along with that, so you couldn't even get bailed out by a touchdown. We had like a nice month and a half long stretch where it was like all Travis Etienne all the time. And the last like month has not been good. He had no receptions, no targets in this game either, which is the second time in the last 3 weeks that's happened. Now I get it. The game against Baltimore, he got hurt a little bit, so but still, even on weeks, like what this is 4 weeks ago against Kansas City, he went 11 for 45, but he had three receptions for 28 yards, which isn't a ton of yardage, but in PPR, those receptions help.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting those receptions, yikes, he is not good. It's just not good. And I don't know if things get better because, yeah, they got a home game, but it's against that Dallas defense. So,
yeah,
can we really expect, things to get better? I mean, Nick Chubb, you brush it off. Nick Chubb is that.
Yeah.
You brush it off. You go, okay, he might have hosed me a little bit this week, but you go in. He's been balling pretty much all season. But, like, are you at a point now with Travis Etienne where you're like, do I start him? Because it's been a month, and I know one of those games was injuries, and maybe you can't count it. But, I mean, like I said, week 10 was 11 for 45 on the ground. And it's only 3 for 28 in the air, not massive yardage in the air. I think he had 3 for 12 last week against Dallas against Detroit in the air. So he's getting some receptions, but he's not getting a massive amount of yardage on those receptions. So it'll be interesting to see what people do going into week one. Unless you got that coveted bye, what are you doing with Travis Etienne? It'll be interesting to find out. But what I'm more interested in finding out is your ugly Drew, who was just nasty, ugly, didn't want to deal with him in week 14.
Yeah, this is tough if you started this guy after his last few weeks here, where it looks like he's since his last stud, he's turned it around for a few good weeks. But Derek Carr put that emo eyeliner back on for this week, man, and just barely broke a 50% completion rate, 11 to 20, 137 yards, 2 interceptions with no touchdowns. Watching this game and seeing them just absolutely fall apart at the end to the Rams. I believe this was the game where the special teams squad after that final punt was starting to dance a little bit, assuming that they had the game in hand, only to watch one Baker Mayfield come back and march down the field. And the tweets after that final drive were amazing if you haven't seen some of them. Some people committed to some outrageous things that they would do to themselves if Baker marched 98 yards back down the field for the win. And he did it with time on the clock. But for Derek Carr, and again, we've said it multiple times this year, a playoff team last year, team that had a chance to go even further and was a kick away, added arguably the best wide receiver who should have had and has had really good chemistry with Derek Carr throughout the season, double-digit touchdowns, and he just could not get anything going here. That was an ugly, ugly game, and the final drive was about all that redeemed it.
Yeah, I mean, so watching that game, that was the Thursday night game. So you're watching that game. It's the only game on your TV. You got to have Prime. So you're stuck. You can't even flip around during commercials. You're stuck in Amazon Prime. And all you hear is, Baker Mayfield doesn't even know his receivers' names, and he's been there for 48 hours, and he is living out of a bag, and hasn't seen the outside of the facility there in Los Angeles, and he can't even read the plays. He has the armband on just so he can read the plays. And Baker Mayfield by no means had a Hall of Fame worthy performance in that game, which is understandable. I don't think anybody was expecting Baker to go out there with, talk about a team decimated by injuries, right? He's thrown, his number 1 is Van Jefferson. His number 2 is Tutu Atwell. They are really, just hurt all over the place. Cooper Kupp, IR. Allen Robinson, IR. Everybody, IR. So, but that last drive, man, he just went full Baker. He just said, what's the worst that can happen? We lose? No one's going to blame me. I've been here for 48 hours. Yep. I'm just going to do my thing. And this is kind of the mystique of Baker, right? He has these, not even games, right? Moments where it's like, this dude can't be stopped. There's nothing you can do. And then he has like 58 other minutes of just being like, what the heck was that throw? Why is he doing this? I don't understand it. I'm pulling for Baker because honestly, the fact that, and I get he didn't play well this year, but the fact that the Carolina Panthers went to him and said, you know what, Baker, you're going to be the third guy. Like, with the coaching, Matt Ja Rule got fired, and then, they got Steve Wilkes as the interim coach, and they got what's his name, the old Giants coach as their offensive coordinator, McAdoo. Yeah, like, this is a team that just like was not set up for anyone offensively to succeed. And I mean, I'll give PJ Walker credit. He had a flash game there, and looks like Sam Darnold has figured some things out. But I mean, talk about a team that just couldn't figure it out on offense. So I think Baker got a raw deal, and he goes to LA and he does his thing. So good for him. I'm glad he was able to pull that out. Um, if any coach should be fired immediately, and there's a couple. Josh, go back to New England and just be an offensive coordinator. That's what you're good at. Listen, I don't do open heart surgery. Why? Because I'm not competent and I wouldn't be good at the job. Josh, you're just not a good NFL head coach. That's what it is. That's what it's always going to be. The first time we made the excuse, he was young. He had Tim Tebow at quarterback. Hey, and they won a playoff. They won a playoff game. Hey, we got all excited, right? And now what? Now, what's the excuse? You have Carr, a competent quarterback.
Yep.
You have Devontae Adams, one of the best wide receivers in the league. You have Josh Jacobs, who has been insane this season. And you can't hold a lead. You can't score. What did they score? 14 points against a team that doesn't have Aaron Donald?
16, I think, right? It was 17, 16 at the end.
Yeah, 16 points. What? You're supposed to be an offensive mastermind. You have the best wide receiver in the league. You have a guy who has been, a top 3 running back in the league this year?
Mm-hmm.
And you have Derek Carr, who is let's call him a top 16 quarterback in the league. And I'm sure that can be argued. And you 16 points? That's it. What? So I'm sorry. If I own the Raiders, I'd be like, mistakes were made. You gotta go, man. We can't go from a playoff team to a team that is looking at a top 10 pick and not attribute that to the coach when they've got better at a lot of positions. Even if it's guys that they had that are playing better, they've gotten better at a lot of positions. So that's what it is. That's all I got to say about that. Sorry, I had to rant because I wanted to give Baker his credit, and then I just wanted to clown the Las Vegas Raiders. My ugly is not meant to offend you, Drew. But I had to put it out there. My ugly is James Cook. Look, I get it. Bad weather game, right? It was nasty. It was raining. There weren't a bunch of points scored. But James Cook, he was kind of getting into a little groove, right? He was getting some receptions. He was getting some rushing attempts. I mean, we were like starting to vibe with James Cook a little bit. And then 4 attempts for 6 yards. His longest rush was 4 yards. So the rest of his attempts were 3 for 2. And he had 1 reception for 9 yards. Listen, I mean, this is kind of how you have to treat all of the Buffalo running backs, right? Devin Singletary could pop, and that's going to mean the other 2 guys are not. James Cook could pop. and then the other two guys might not. Naheem Hines, I don't think he could pop. But at least you know that about Hines. You're not starting him anymore. Ever since he's gone to Buffalo, he's disappeared. But that's good to know. James Cook, on the other hand, kind of wanted to tease us a little bit, tempt us with a couple of good games in the last 3 weeks, and then we get this. I guess if you still want to believe in James Cook, the upside is they play Miami next week, and Miami has kind of been on a downward spiral. Could you just imagine, Drew? Trevor Lawrence with those weapons that they got in Miami. I just want to throw that out there because we got that little that little bet between us. So I just
yeah, they're about 30 points apart on the season. The last couple of weeks for Trevor Lawrence has definitely pulled him away there. James Cook was he had an opportunity to save his day with a touchdown. It looked like he was in for I don't know if it was inside the 5 or so, and then Buffalo's RB1, Josh Allen, decided to do it himself.
That's what we've always said, though, right? It's kind of like you can never truly trust a running back in Buffalo because when everything is on the line, it's especially the goal line, it's going to be Josh Allen and nobody else.
Everything's on the line.
Literally on the goal line. But, I just I also wanted to tell you, because I do like to keep things fair, even though this was not what our bet was on. Tua is still slightly ahead on points per game, 18.86 to 18.61. So slight per game advantage for
It's Tua, almost like we were both right, Josh.
Were we though?
Maybe we make Bill break this tie.
So if you're watching,
drafting,
obviously you see a very, very handsome and intelligent man. It is our man Bill at Super Duper Flex. Bill, how you doing, man?
Good. How about you, fellas?
I'm poking a little fun at Drew. Drew is taking it like a champion.
Sounds like you guys need a referee.
Well, you came in at just the right time. We got our little T-Law versus Tua bet total points. So I always have to give Drew his props because I think by the end of the season, Trevor Lawrence is going to also take the points per game award. But for now, and as it's been pretty much the entire season, I believe, Tua has been ahead on average points per game. So
he did better for you during the regular season to get you into the playoffs. So, and you got to take into account that Tua also missed parts of games because of injuries. So, the games that he actually played a full game, I bet his average is actually quite a bit higher than T-Law.
Well, like the old ball coach used to say, your greatest ability is availability.
Who has Tua in this? I don't even know.
Drew does.
Oh, okay.
Or that way. I always mess that up that way.
See, that's the way you have to have it because, I could be the judge because I absolutely have no idea who.
No, this was an off-season bet, and earlier when I spoke about my good for week 14, and I mentioned Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people, including people that we had on this show, kind of wrote T-Law off as a bust because of his rookie season. And I said, hey, guys, Urban Meyer, giant dumpster fire. I say this and people argue with me, and I go, no arguments are necessary because Urban Meyer is the worst head coach in the NFL's history. You can argue with me all you want. There's no argument. He is. And I mean, God, the weapons he had last year, Marvin Jones, by the way, I've always been a big Marvin Jones guy, but when he's your number one, the wide receiver room is not stocked. DJ Chark was in there, Laviska Shenault for half the season. It just wasn't good weapons. And Trevor Lawrence, is kind of on the come up with these guys that are good, not great weapons. Your Evan Ingrams, your Zay Joneses, your Christian Kirks. Very, very interested to see how people who either held on or traded for Calvin Ridley feel, because that's going to be an interesting little dynamic in 2023. If T-Law can kind of keep progressing, and I can't imagine them adding a big time wide receiving weapon. So it's probably going to be Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, and Zay Jones as the top three receivers. Not a wide receiver room at the beginning of 2022 that you thought would be interesting, but at the beginning of 2023, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. What do you think about that, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, it's only headed in the right direction, right? So, yeah, I don't necessarily. It's not a wide receiver core I'm focused on yet, but I definitely have way too many Zay Jones shares, just because he was free, and so I appreciate the assistance he's provided this season for sure. I mean, they obviously were going to use him, right, with what they paid him. So sometimes you just got to follow the money and hope for the best. And I feel like that's a kind of a easy way to get some cheap production.
Yeah,
and if they're wrong, you just cut them.
Yeah, I thought he was about to get in the doghouse after a couple of early drops in that game, and kudos to Trevor Lawrence for going back to him, and he had that ridiculous catch through the defender's hands for that touchdown. But so Josh, I'm curious for you, if I were to trade you my Tua for your Trevor Lawrence, what would I have to add to that in a Superflex league, either pick wise or a kind of a range of a player that you would typically want?
Honestly, all joking aside, value says. I'm going to go with value says first, because my personal feelings, I don't think are actually indicative of what the value should be. So I want to come at this from a non-biased point of view. It's not going to have to be a lot. It really isn't, because I think Trevor Lawrence is the better quarterback, but Tua's got, just crazy weapons. And he has not done much this year. But if the Dolphins can retain like Mike Gesicki for like a cheap price, because he's done pretty much nothing this year, that's a good tight end to have to go along with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who are elite receivers. So probably like a second. Like it's not like, now for me, I love Trevor Lawrence so much. It would be a price that you shouldn't be willing to pay. You might if you like Trevor Lawrence as much as I do. But I don't think that's the right way to come from this, because I don't think too many people like Trevor Lawrence as much as I do, while not being as high on Tua as I think the majority of dynasty players are.
So if we're in a 12-team league, and now the regular season's over, most of us have a pretty good idea of what the first half of the draft is going to look like next year.
Yep.
Let's say I've got Tua, and I've got what we know now is going to be the 201 next year.
Yeah, like if you're sending that to me, I'm not making that trade. But I think
Yeah.
everyone else should make that trade. I think the value is right there. But me personally,
I get that.
I would need like a first added.
Needs to start with a 1.
Right. But again, and I want to keep repeating this because I know someone's going to come at me like, you are saying that I need all the. I'm not saying you need anything unless you're trying to make that trade with me. And then yes, you do need that. But if you're just trying to trade with someone in your league, yeah, I think the 201 and Tua for Trevor Lawrence is perfect. You're not. They're pretty much the same age, right? Maybe Tua's a year or two older. So it's not like you're getting a 35-year-old quarterback. You're getting pretty similarly aged quarterback. You gotta love Tua's weapons. The head coaching has been pretty good, but
well, I think that I mean, if it's just I'm picking one or the other, I'm taking Lawrence just because, and I think the majority of people would, just because of health concerns with Tua. Also, it seems like there's this sector of the fantasy football world that just hates Tua. So you're a little more limited in the people who are interested in trading for him. So like I just feel like Trevor Lawrence is just an easier asset to to move if you want to. So I mean, personally, I'm kind of indifferent. I like Trevor Lawrence more just because of the safety I feel is there. I mean, he gets knocked silly in another game. I mean, you got to start getting worried. And so, I mean, production doesn't lie, right? Like, I mean, he's doing exceptionally well. He has a great coach, which is super important, that actually is designing plays to fit his skill set. And imagine, wow, weird that works. And, so I mean, he's showing that he, can do some stuff. He can't do everything. He doesn't have the, physical abilities that Trevor Lawrence does. But I think that's the other thing. Like, I think that, let's say, I don't know, something happens where, was it Mike, what's his name? McDaniels. Is that his name?
Coach or yeah.
The coach.
Coach, yeah.
Yeah, like he let's say he moves on or something, like, I mean, what happens? Or I don't know. I just feel like Trevor Lawrence is safer in any situation except for Urban Meyer.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at DTC right now, and they are a point apart. So I think to Josh's point and what Bill is sharing here, if you can get, I think if somebody is saying I'll take Tua, and all you have to add is, a mid to late second or an early third, the value is definitely on your side. And I do think there's enough reasons to take a guy like Lawrence, who is showing he can do it. This is without having to run a bunch either, which, he's got the physical ability to extend the play there.
Yeah. And
the weapons can only they should have a good chance of getting better over the next couple of years. Maybe they add to the wide receiver room this year in a really strong rookie class between this year and next year. So yeah, I think I'm in the same place. Like, if I had to draft between the two of them, I would draft Lawrence ahead of Tua. And it would be, for me, it's probably in a startup, it's probably a solid round higher or so.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too.
I agree with that.
But based on the value that some of these calculators are looking at, if that's what some of the folks in your leagues depend on, I would fire that offer out. Take that Tua and a third, that 302, 305. See what happens. If you get pushed up into a mid to late second, I would feel great about that. I don't think if I have to, I don't know that I'm giving a first with him to get to Lawrence. I'd have to kind of broaden the deal to get there to have that included. But I understand why you'd want that if you're in that seat holding on to T-Law.
Yeah, and Drew, you brought up a really good point, and it was a point I was going to bring up if you didn't. Know the people in your league. Know those calculator people. And trust me, you know who those calculator people are, because you've probably sent them an offer before, and they've probably responded to you with a screenshot of the calculator telling you why you're off, and just be like, hey, like, I got 2 on a second, you got T-Law. Calculator, look, hey, it's here. It's here. Look, calculator. It's telling you everything you need to know. And you know what? I'm not saying it's going to work 100% of the time, but there's some people that live and die by the calculator. And that's where you kind of, exploit. Because honestly, I was a little surprised when you said, Drew, that they were only a point apart. And I get it. Like, I get what kind of goes all into the calculator, but I was still a little surprised that it was just a point. So know your league.
And I think another tell, they don't even have to tell you that they use a calculator. All you got to do is go to the calculator and plug in their trade offer.
Yep.
And if it's like really close, you know they use a calculator.
Yeah.
And, maybe that doesn't tell you that they're definitely relying on the calculator, but at least it tells you that they are using it. Because they might think that you're using a calculator and that's why they're doing it, So, I mean, it's, but it's something to at least kind of pay attention to and at least earmark that you notice that. And because I have people in every league that I've done that, when they give me an offer and I'm like, oh, this is within like 2 points. This is really damn close, and so, maybe you can make that work in a later trade,
Yeah.
And I come up with a trade sometimes and then put it into the calculator to see if it's crazy or is it like semi-reasonable. So sometimes I kind of use it as a check against myself because I know I have personal biases like Trevor Lawrence. So I'm like, all right, am I just asking for like way too much here, or am I kind of within a range of, not being that guy? So
yeah, it's good too. And I'll use it in sometimes, like I've got multiple leagues where I have Justin Jefferson because I just love the guy. Picked up a couple of orphans because he was a part of the roster there. And in one league, I've got a league mate who probably every 5 to 7 days either DMs me or sends an offer that includes Justin Jefferson. And finally got to the point where I went in and I was able to build, like, if you're using a calculator, this is the type of offer that I would need to consider moving him, just so you have a better understanding of where I value this guy on my team. And it ended up being, it had to be almost double his actual value in one of these calculators. And yeah, so it can be used in a number of ways. So have fun with it and use it to your advantage. Like Bill said, play the long game too, right? This is a long game. If we're in Dynasty, you're taking notes on league mates, see moves that they've made with other people too. Don't just get locked into what the moves are that you get to make with people. You can see, and I think that's a great idea. I've never really done that before, Bill, but I love that idea of maybe I'll start plugging in some trades that other people do into calculators with other teams, and that'll give us some tells as well. Especially,
you'll at least see that one side is using the calculator. The other side might just go, "Yeah, I like that trade. I'll take it."
Right.
But it's worth, just at least if you really decided, okay, I'm going to put in a little bit of homework during the off season, like every week you pick a league and kind of just go through it, and I bet your eyes would be wide open after
I love that. That's a great
plugging in enough trades. That's actually a really good idea. So
Bill comes on the show and gives us homework.
Yeah.
Now we got.
Hey, you guys are taking time off, so I figure, what the hell, you got to do something.
Yeah, we're not doing anything. We'll do some
right. You're not doing anything.
We're out of here.
Yeah, that'll give us some content to come back with.
There you go.
Now that we've got Bill here too, though, this was great timing. Steve Dennis, friend of the show, he's in a few leagues with us. Put this little tidbit up here: Whispers of Stafford retirement. Another Ram who's not been playing and injured here. Long-time hometown hero of Detroit Lions. So start with you, Bill. Just thoughts. Stafford as a player, as a person, surprising this, initial reactions or emotions if it were true.
I mean, I don't necessarily think he's going to retire, but I bet it's the first off season where he's really considered, at least had a thought about it. Pretty much every year, probably for the last 5 that he was with the Lions, he got beat up pretty bad, and he had injuries, back injuries. Just there was some injury that he played through every year, and entering this season with the elbow issue that was a big thing, on Twitter. Entering the season injured and then getting knocked, and his wife, who's very active on social media, she has her own podcast or whatever, and mentioned that when she sees something like that, she wants him to retire. So she says she knows he's not there yet, but probably if you hear your wife say that and she's concerned, I mean, that's not gonna help you decide to go back. And I mean, he may still go back and play, and I don't think he wants to end his career like this.
Yeah.
Where you win a Super Bowl, then this is what everybody's going to remember. So I don't think he's going to retire, but if he did, I mean, I couldn't blame him. Honestly, like, he's had so many injuries and so many issues that, like, at some point you just say, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I think I don't know that too many people really foresaw the wheels coming off this badly for the Rams, and they're setting some infamous records this year for post Super Bowl seasons. But when you see a guy like Von Miller leave, and you see integral parts of your team, your left tackle retires, like he calls it quits after the Super Bowl after a long career. Talking about his body can't handle it, it's time to spend time with the kids and stuff. I think there's something there that if you could go back in time, I wonder how strongly Stafford would consider it walking out on top if he had walked away after the win.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know he would have, because he's only like 36 now, so like
34.
Oh shit. I mean, maybe he feels 36.
He probably does. He'll be 35 in February.
Okay, so yeah, 30. Entering the season this year, he's 34 years old. I mean, that's still so young for a quarterback. So
it's 20 years younger than Tom Brady. So,
and he had just signed the contract as well.
He did. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. Kind of. I don't even necessarily. I think the only way even if he retires, right? Don't they get hit with the
cap?
Like his bonus or whatever, or
his signing bonus.
Yeah. So like, I don't necessarily know even that they want him to retire. Like, I mean, I think there's some teams that want their player to retire, but I don't know.
I hope he has a good season, a respectable season to walk out on, and if it's this next one coming up, so be it. I've always liked Matt Stafford, and it's from the outside, it's always been you hope that they get somewhere. I always want the Bills to get there first, but if somebody else is going to go and get to the win, you watch the Lions and so many disappointing retirements from that franchise, and so many questions of what could have been if things were run a little bit differently. You go back to Barry Sanders, of course, and then you watched Calvin Johnson walk away, and it's almost like you wonder how much they're in his mind as he's thinking through some of that stuff. But yeah, I really loved seeing him come out of Georgia, and I think about his ESPN commercials and stuff. Man, it's just a good guy. Seems like he was didn't take himself too seriously, and really just enjoyed the game. You saw him fight through some ridiculous hits and injuries with the Lions, and a commitment to coming out and doing, laying it all out on the line. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But yeah, wish him a good off season to recover, get his body right, get his mind right, and then ultimately respect whatever decision he has there. But Josh, anything on your mind when you think about Stafford and what could be winding down his career in the next little bit?
I mean, I was so happy to see him win a Super Bowl last year because, like you mentioned, Drew and Bill, being in Detroit, you saw for many, many, many years, that dude just went all out every week, every game, took the hits, played through injuries, never complained. And to see a guy who plays like that win a championship, I was happy to see him. I know this year obviously has not been a good year for him, but I think if he did retire, and I also don't think he's going to retire, mostly because of his contract. That doesn't make a ton of money up front on this contract this year and next, but starting in 2024, he has base salaries of 31 million, 27 million, and 26 million. And I know that Matthew Stafford has made a lot of money. I believe he was the last of the number one picks to make those insane rookie contracts. So he started off in the league making a lot of money. So he hasn't really quit since then. But I mean, still, almost $100 million is a hard to get away from. But there'll be a lot of sad fantasy managers because Matthew Stafford was always underrated, but was always kind of in that QB1 range. And then he kind of fell off to that high QB2 range, but you were still happy to have him on your team. This year, obviously, you have not been happy to have him on your team. But if he retires, probably a lot of teams with some holes in Superflex leagues because, he was probably your number 2 guy, and obviously probably floated down to your number 3 guy after a while. But if he retires, you got no number 3 guy. You're running with 2. And I know this year there's supposed to be a couple quarterbacks coming out, but probably unless you're in that top 3 or 4, you're probably not getting any of those guys.
Yep.
So, but love him as a player. Like you said, Drew, I hope he gets right and comes back strong. But if he decides it's his time, I think he's had a great career. Good for him. Love watching him play.
Well, we've got you here, Bill. We're in multiple leagues together, but one that we're in, we've got a couple folks in here. Steve was in here earlier. We've got Lindsay saying hi now. I know Jesse's in a couple different leagues too. But going to the OG Fantasy Timeline Listener League, Bill, you're commissioning that one. You and Josh have combined forces there to try to do your thing, and had what looked like a great draft and a good rookie draft afterwards and stuff. And you're in the playoffs this year. Any surprises from the season? I'm looking through the schedule and kind of seeing some of the scores and the matchups throughout the year. Rocky's win now method seems to be doing well and paying off. His points per game are significantly higher. Lindsay and I are pretty close. I was able to eke out one more win and secure that bye, which, I don't envy. I forget who she's got this week. Short Logic has got Lindsay this week. So good luck there. But yeah,
Just
anything that you guys are thinking about? I mean, I will say, I know I took home the trophy last year, but I think we all knew she had probably the best team last year throughout the whole season from bell to bell. She was just crushing it. I got a lucky win against you guys last year when CeeDee Lamb got blanked for the second half of the playoff week.
Oh, yes, I recall.
So I got a lucky pass there to move on and face her. And we just had it was kind of an ugly final championship week from what I recall, but she's built a good team with good talent across the board, including some folks that, she was sneaky about grabbing a couple of those guys down on her roster there. So, but thoughts from you guys, Bill is either commissioner, kind of seeing how this league is playing out versus some of the others that you commish, or anything that you guys are just thinking about it in this league in general. We've got some of our league mates listening on now, or probably listening to us a little bit later this week.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty competitive league. I mean, we only made it because of points scored. It wasn't because of records. So I do like that as a way to get into the playoffs. I think it rewards the better teams. At least, like the 5th and 6th team. And I like that as a policy or a rule to get the best teams into the playoffs. If you get lucky and you're a not so good team, but you still make the top 4, congratulations. But so I do like that. It definitely Josh and I our team started out really poorly this year, to the point where we were ready to blow it up because we had a lot of players get hurt, and it just was one of those things where I think we had one quarterback, just a lot of things, and it was kind of everything kind of came back together, and we were like, Josh and I were talking about it, and he's like, let's just blow it up, and I might have asked him I was like, yeah, that's cool, and then I like did it one of those GM tools.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it says that we're still in the, that we should be a playoff team, even where we are. And here we are. We made the playoffs. So it saw what we couldn't at that time. So, but yeah, this is a fun league. It's, a lot of people, there's people blowing their teams up from the start. There's people going to, try to win, going with age a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I think overall it's been a pretty fun and competitive league for most of the league. But I think a lot of people got really excited about 2023 picks. So everybody was battling for the top picks. At least a third of the league was battling for the top pick. And so
congratulations, Steve.
Yeah, congrats, Steve. You got your 101. Now, what are you going to do with it?
Hopefully he has the
running back and that's the challenge. And so just actually to address that a little bit, it's like I've seen a lot of people just blowing their team up. So they have no assets really. And like, what do you do at that point? Because like you have the 101, but the 101 is like Bijan Robinson. Like he's a running back. So like, are you drafting that running back as your, for your team, but you've depleted your team so much. It's like, what do you do? And so it's kind of interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see what the people do that completely decimated their team, because I'm not sure it's a winning proposition to do that personally.
Can I put on my Nostradamus hat for a minute here? I think by the time we get into prime time rookie draft season, the community is going to talk a large majority of people that have the 101 out of taking Bijan. And here's the reason why. Not necessarily not because Bijan is the best player. I think he's the best prospect coming in. But running back has just been like, we saw Breece Hall go down.
Well, Jonathan Taylor's still for a lot of people or the number one running back, but like, where are you drafting him in a startup? Like, is he even in the first round?
In 2023, no. Like
especially not if you throw the 23 first into the
definitely not.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I mean, even pre that,
but we've seen Javonte go down. We've seen like all of these young guys. Then you want to couple in, as you mentioned, Jonathan Taylor, who has definitely not been the best running back in the league. Not, no offense, not even close to the best running back in the league this year. I think the community as a whole is going to come together and say, listen, CJ Stroud, maybe not as sexy as Bijan. Bryce Young, maybe, and super flex leagues, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not as sexy, but the quarterbacks, Drew and I are on opposite sides, but we've seen young quarterbacks, Tua and Trevor Lawrence, stumble a little bit out of the gate and then blow up, and they're always going to have that Justin Fields, another great one. They're always going to have that insulated value unless unfortunately you stumble on like a Trey Lance who, has had a very weird career so far.
But his value has been insulated too. Like really the only player I can remember that hasn't been insulated after their rookie season as a quarterback was Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
Rosen.
For
Josh
Josh
Rosen,
Rosen. Yeah.
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 He only quarterback I can recall in the last like 7 years
Yeah.
that wasn't insulated after his rookie year.
Yeah.
Baker
Agreed.
was.
Even Zach Wilson after last year. I mean, now he has, I think, very little value. But after the rookie season,
Yeah.
I think people were still like, hey, he was a little injured. Guys on his team were a little injured. Let's give him another year and see what happens. Now we know he's hot garbage. But, you know, he did have that insulated value after the rookie season. And I agree with you on, like, even a guy like Kenny Pickett, you know, Kenny Pickett has not set the world on fire, but I don't think his value is going to change all that much.
No.
I mean, if anything, we're going to go, oh my God, what if they get a couple of offensive linemen? He has George Pickens, he has Deontay Johnson, he has Najee Harris, he has Pat Freiermuth. Like, we could definitely come up with a situation where he gets hyped all the way up if they make some, I think, some coaching changes and a couple of changes to that offensive line as upgrades. So, yeah, I think that's what we are going to get talked into, because, like you said, if you blow your team apart and you have nothing, what does a running back do for you?
Well, and Jesse says at the in the chat, like, draft Bijan, then sell for the equivalent of 3 firsts. I mean, yeah, that's probably what you have to do. I mean, I'm just not sure there's going to be a lot of contenders that are going to be willing to pay 3 firsts for him. And just for the exact reasons that Josh is talking about. And, like, are you paying 3 firsts for Taylor? Probably not.
No.
Like,
Not at
you
this
know, I
point.
can't think of anybody, any running back. I can't think of anybody I'm willing to pay over 2 firsts for. Like, am I paying over 2 firsts for Breece Hall? Like, no.
Not now.
Am I paying 2 for Kenneth Walker? No. And I'm
No.
biased towards him. So, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw a trade today. It was actually 2 firsts, a 23 and a 24 first for him, basically.
I mean, in the league right now.
So there might be somebody that super, like, has a shit ton of picks, right? Like,
Right.
that would be the
Or-
only thing where you're just like, I'm a contender. Like, there's the one league where I've just destroyed the league, and I now have like 6 firsts also. So it's like I could make that trade because my team's good still, and I have all those picks. But
I
those
also
are
think you're
few
more
and far
prudent than
between
that.
leagues. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's like,
Yeah. You're more likely in a super flex to have a great QB3. Maybe Justin Fields is your QB3 now, behind, you know, 2 other top 5 quarterbacks, and you can make that downgrade. Okay, great. Justin Fields in a super flex league can run, showing some things. So I'll give you Justin Fields and a first to get to, you know, the 101 next year or something, which I don't even know if that's enough to get there.
I wouldn't even do that.
No,
Like,
me neither.
well, yeah,
neither.
I mean, that's something that you could do, and that, like, or a Trevor Lawrence maybe in a first, like something like that. Like, I mean, I know you wouldn't do that, Josh, but I could see somebody doing
yeah,
for
if you've collected.
okay,
you've
like,
collected
so,
those
like, in one league I
quarterbacks.
have Herbert, Allen, and Watson. So, like, if I decide I wanted to move Watson, like, I feel like I could get the 101 for Watson, or I should be able to if Watson
Be pretty
shows
close,
that, like,
yeah.
towards the
Yeah.
end of
Yeah.
the season.
If
Yeah.
I earn the 101 and my options are drafting Bijan or getting Deshaun Watson, yeah, I haven't been in love with the last 2 games, but I still want Deshaun Watson.
Well,
Like,
yeah, and you make this trade in the offseason, and hopefully Watson shows like he's getting back into
Right.
form, and
but
and
even
people will still tell themselves, hey, you know, now he has the whole offseason. He has, you know, he's
Yeah, he's still
But
only
even-
27 or whatever.
even if
Yeah.
he has 4 average games, not good, not like, you know, top 10 games, but just average, just like, you know,
Yeah.
16, 17, 18. I'm still really thinking about that trade, because if I'm literally the 101, I am the worst team in the league. Like, I need I need something. I probably don't have good quarterbacks, because if I did, I probably wouldn't be the 101. So Deshaun Watson is a cornerstone piece, and it gets me out of drafting Bijan if I'm still there in May.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm like, okay, good. Get me out of Bijan Robinson. Get me Deshaun Watson.
Like
And
I would love to have a share or two of Bijan, and I'm pretty sure I won't. Like, and I'm not gonna worry about it. Like, at some point, it's gonna crack. Somebody that kind of just blew their whole team up to get him is gonna realize, and they're gonna have to move him. And hopefully, I think that trying to make a move for him after the draft or right during the draft when people are getting nervous because they've been trying to shop it and get $1 million, $1 million for him. Steve.
Watson, that's what got me up the creek in the first place.
Well,
I
that's
guess you
not a
can't
bad
trade-
thing now coming into this year. Then you can pair them up. The biggest thing is running back's like the last position you really want to add to your team, and so
there's so many ways to get
counterintuitive, but I mean, you got to add the most valuable asset to your team and work from there. Like, I'm not gonna, if I don't believe in a 5'10" Bryce Young, 160 pounds or whatever he is, or I'm not like super sold on CJ Stroud. Like, I mean, you still got to take Bijan. Like, I guess I don't necessarily know I would get there, but I think you still got to take the running back there and just hope that or try to sell it like in April.
Yeah. And I think this is a class too, which this last year's class was not the case, where I think you'll be able to move around the draft a little bit easier here this year, whether it's getting to 24 picks or moving back in this 23 draft class. This year it was like the 101, and then everything after that, nobody was moving picks around until you got to the 104,
because like the 102 to
105.
the 108 was the same.
Yeah,
I had a few 102s in different leagues, and man, we had it in the OG league due to a trade, and man, we tried. We sent trades out there, and everybody was like, "Nah, make the damn pick," and we were like, "I'll make the damn pick then." But and then y'all still let us have.
Who'd you take with that pick, Josh?
Jameson Williams.
But we ended up with Garrett Wilson.
But y'all still let us have Garrett
So
Wilson.
we ended up getting the two players we would have drafted in the proper order anyway. So
come on. And,
you guys.
and Bill and I didn't even talk about who to take because we were like, all right, let's make trades. And then finally we were just like up against the wall. And we're like, oh, we got to take somebody. And I'm like,
I don't care who. Like, honestly, all 5 of those wide receivers, like, we weren't going to take Walker, right? Like, because you didn't like Walker.
No, I did not. And I was wrong.
And that's okay. Like, so, and that's the challenge when you have a co-owner. And I'm Drew, you have many teams with that, where if one person doesn't like that player, you just have to say, okay, we'll just go to somebody else. And that's okay. It's just, so these teams are always interesting. Like, Josh and I have not made one blind bid. Like, we have $100 still of our blind bids, just because we're just going about life, and we'll do drops and ads after the after waivers run, and
our team is so good that
it's like, what do we even have to do?
Right?
So,
do we need?
It would be fair.
But yeah, I mean, that was fun because I mean, Bill and I were both like firing out trades, and everybody was just like, no. And then it was like, all right, like,
and it wasn't just our league, And I mean, I know a lot of our league had people who were new to Dynasty, so oftentimes you don't get a lot of trades from those teams that first year because they're not really
still figuring it out.
Exactly.
But I will say I also had the 102 and Trade Addicts too. It's in the name, Trade Addicts. And I remember sitting in Philadelphia International Airport because I was getting on a flight to Raleigh, North Carolina. And I put in the chat, I said, 102 is up for grabs. Come get it. And it was crickets.
Because that tier was so like,
it was crickets. And I remember I sat, my flight came up, they called me to my flight. I got on. I said, all right, when I land, I'll hit up the Uber. And then while I'm waiting for him, I'll check all the trades that come in. And that inbox was empty. And I said, All right, Garrett Wilson it is.
But of those 6 players, who were you disappointed that you drafted in that tier? So they were right. You know what I mean? Like, there's not one player in that tier that I'm like, man, that was awful. Like,
yeah, and honestly, I took Garrett Wilson almost everywhere, and I am thrilled to the moon. But you're thrilled to the moon if you got Kenneth Walker, and you're thrilled to the moon. I mean,
Olave,
you're thrilled. Like,
and now he was the worst one. Like, everybody was
the
trying
one
to move up
everywhere.
because like a lot of people didn't want Olave, and it was funny because Rocky and I were talking about it, and I'm like, I think Olave is going to have the best season out of all the guys. Like, after we knew the teams.
Yeah,
because he was said he was making a trade with Garrett Wilson and he was getting Olave, you know, and there's some parts moving. And I was like, everybody was like, oh, the Olave side. And then I DM'd him on the side. I'm like, dude, I like your side. I go, I think he's gonna be awesome this year, you know? And I mean, it's shown. I mean, they both were awesome, but like he got additional, you know, things in the trades. So
which good for him. I mean, I don't know what the additional was, but the fact that they're so close that getting anything additional is
I have to think like in startups, Olave is going to be going over Garrett Wilson now. In most startups, would you guys agree?
That's going to be interesting because both of those guys have some legitimate quarterback questions. Like, we know Zach Wilson ain't it, but like we don't know who is it for the Jets. And the weird Andy Dalton / Jameis Winston thing.
Olave's got what, like 3 single-digit games this year?
Yeah, so his first game he scored 9. Ridiculous. Actually, in our league, he has 1.
Yeah, so
there you go.
You look at his production as rookie, in spite of all those questions, and I think objectively on paper you would probably say he has to go a couple picks before. But I think with what people have seen from Garrett Wilson and a couple of the blow-up games that he's just made some people look silly too, where I think Olave has been doing it more as a technician. So I don't think I could fault anybody going either way. I think emotions and what we see in some of the highlights and stuff will probably skew people toward Garrett Wilson, and I'll be thrilled to be 2 picks behind him and pick up Olave.
Well, I think what will also help, and we'll have to see how the rest of this season progresses. But if the Jets end up with 9 or 10 wins and they're a playoff team, I think that's also going to boost up Garrett Wilson's value as it is, because I think when we're close on players like that, we lean to, as a community, we lean towards the player on the better team. So if the Jets end up 9-8 or 10-7 and they get a playoff spot, we already know that the Saints aren't doing that. So I think that when players are close like that, I think we will lean more towards the better team, which is very weird to say that the Jets are the better team.
Yeah,
but
I like Robert Saleh as a coach, and I think he's building it in a healthy way. So yeah, if they get quarterback figured out, I mean, their defense is coming back. Breece Hall hopefully comes back in a reasonable amount of time. And even now, though, I mean, you're watching Zonovan Knight have a little bit of success there. You know, Michael Carter could have some success. So they have adequate running backs to just pair with if they can figure out the quarterback piece. But yeah, for me, it's a head versus heart thing. I think my head would say it should be Olave, and I think my emotions would probably carry me over to Garrett Wilson, maybe 60-40 split.
So I just looked up DLF's December ADP, and not that that's a tell-all, but Olave is 13 overall, and Wilson's 17. So they're in the same. Okay. I mean, they're very, very close, and it's going to be a preference thing at that point. And I think you're probably right that Wilson's the sexier pick also, like just because people get anchored to he was earlier in the rookie draft.
Right.
So I think that there's going to be a lot of people that will choose him just based on that.
He's got about a 10% boost in value over Olave on DTC as well. 30 points for for Wilson, 27 and change for Olave. So they're still very close. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's another one of those. If you can get Olave plus a little because somebody is really that attached to Garrett Wilson, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think he's had a worse situation than, but he's had more opportunity also. So like it's one of those things where it's just whatever yeah, I stopped to read messages. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
No, you're good.
That's why Drew started laughing.
No, I saw Jesse. Go Bills. So while we have Bill here as well, I appreciate your time, Bill. But so the three of us and Steve and a couple of others are also in Superflex Army too, a 14-team Superflex tight end premium. And this is one where I am not contending. In fact, I do co-manage in this league, and Steve also got to the 101.
He is the 101 master.
This guy, I thought after he got it last year as well. And so
what are you doing, Steve?
But I'm looking at this league, and we got Rocky in this one again. Jerry O'Shea is in this one. We've got a lot of familiar names in here too. K-Mac is here. So just look at the Superflex Army leagues too. Just Josh, what an ascent this year, man. I think you started kind of middle of the pack or top of the bottom half, and your team has come together with Daniel Jones at the helm. Sitting number 4 at 9-5, right behind Bill at 10-4. Bill with, by the way, just a ridiculous team in this league with Herbert, Watson, Jordan Love. Did you have somebody that got hurt here? Felt like you had Stafford in this league. Maybe you traded somebody away in this league too.
Yeah, I think I had Dobbins maybe, and I traded him. Yeah, I traded him for Gabe Davis, I think, during the season.
Yeah, you got Swift in here. You made your play in this league for Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is how are you feeling about that trade at this point?
Yeah, so you and I traded. It was right at the beginning of the season when he was just like thrashing the league, and I'm like, I got to get at least one. I have 0 Amon-Ra at that point, and so I'm like, I got to get at least one. And so I mean, you knew you had me, so. What I gave you 2, bless you. I had to give you 2 firsts, and you gave me your second. And then we moved. You gave me some change or something. And
a couple later
2024.
Picks in 24. Yeah.
So I'm happy with it because like you gave me your second this year, which is the 202, and I'm in the playoffs. So even if I win in the next round, and this is a 14-teamer. That means that the best you would get is a 111. So if I win, this round, and so I figure move from 111 back to 202. That's what 6 picks because there's a bonus pick in there for the toilet bowl. So I moved back 6 picks, and I gave up my 24 first for Amon-Ra basically. I'm happy with it, and because he's doing exceptionally well, and I feel like he's, inarguably a wide receiver 1, especially with his age and all the targets he's getting. So, and a lot of people are worried about Jameson Williams. I just think they're totally like Jameson Williams is going to perform on way less targets. So, like, I don't necessarily think that he hurts Amon-Ra. Like, I think if anything, he's going to help. And so, and I think the Lions realize that they don't really use their tight ends with this offense. And that's why you saw him trade Hockenson. And they're totally because Amon-Ra is their, guy in the middle of the field. So
it's the irony of having a former tight end as a coach.
Yeah, right.
I do want to ask while you're here too. I know you and I on one of the shows that you filled in for Josh over the summer. You had some optimism around what Jared Goff could be this year. And it's been interesting to see that play out and kind of the ebbs and flows there. What are you expecting for him moving forward based on how they're performing over the last 6 games?
I mean, I think that he feels really comfortable in this offense. And I'm kind of looking to see where Goff is in Superflex Army 2, and he's the number 12 quarterback in points per game. So like Jared Goff as a QB1, like we haven't seen that since like his second year or whatever, the first year with McVay, I think.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing what I expected, and he had a lull in there, but that was when like the whole Lions team was injured. Amon-Ra wasn't playing, like
Swift was out.
DJ Chark was out, Swift was hurt. There was just they had no dynamism to the team at that point. So I mean, I think he is. It's interesting because I talk with some of my buddies here, and I there's times where we're like, well, he's not we got to plan on getting a rookie quarterback, and all that. And then now we're like, well, he's adequate, build the rest of the team. And then if you want to swap, get rid of him later on, like they still have him under contract for the next 2 years. He's only making $30 million per season, which is now a bargain. Like,
remember when we were wondering if Dak would get 34?
Yeah. It's the times have changed. So, and they also have, Jesse's saying they have the Rams pick, which is like the 5th pick right now. It's so crazy. Like they have the 5th and the 16th pick. And which one, if you were going to say which one's the Rams, you know what I mean? And which one's the Lions, you would just automatically say that it's the 5 is the Lions. But, it's the same thing with the Russell Wilson trade. Now Seattle has the better quarterback and their number 2 pick. It's just like,
by the way, just to throw this out here, the Eagles might win the Super Bowl and have a top 5 pick. So, I mean, think about that for a minute. Like that, the funniest thing that gets talked about, because I live right outside of Philly, is the fact that the Eagles and the Saints play each other in Week 18. So, barring a semi-collapse from the Eagles, they're going to have the number 1 seed locked up. So Week 18 doesn't mean anything except for the fact that they could beat the brakes off of the Saints and just up that pick. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, a pick is improving either way that week.
Yeah.
Well,
unless they win the Super Bowl.
Unless they win the Super Bowl, yeah,
that's right. And that's kind of the Jesse saying the Bills will smoke the Eagles. I don't think.
Are we making Super Bowl predictions, Jesse? I hope that's a Super Bowl prediction.
I think the Eagles can be beat, but I don't think there's a team in the league that can smoke them. That is a far-fetched one there. Steve's got to fly here. Steve Dennis, love you, brother. We will have a nice, relaxing break. We're going to do a couple more shows. We'll probably do one after the New Year break. If we could say some nice things about Jordan Love.
He's going to get some opportunity probably soon.
He's going to get some play. He's going to get some burn out there. He filled in, what was that, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? He filled in for Aaron Rodgers. And he looked
adequate.
Not bad. But, we'd seen Jordan Love in some spots before, and it wasn't good. But that last time he was in there, it wasn't bad. So, and let's face it, Aaron Rodgers keeps wanting to drink that funny tea. The Packers may just go, hey, go into the jungle, drink your funny tea. We used the 1st round pick on this kid. We're going to try to figure it out. And then they'll probably use their 1st round pick this year and get like Jackson Smith and Jigba or something like that. Just to piss Aaron Rodgers off, They'll be like, what do you mean?
Picks will be wide receivers.
We draft wide receivers in the 1st round all the time. What are you talking about, Aaron Rodgers? Look at this guy over here. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I have Jordan Love on a team or two. As well, just as kind of like, all right, let's see what happens.
He's on my Superflex Army 2 team.
Is he?
Of course he is.
Drew, do you have anything left in Superflex Army 2?
We looked at it, Josh. We looked at it.
That's right. You got nothing, don't you?
I got picks, but you're looking for players.
Yeah, I need points.
Yeah, I have a Desmond Ridder who's about to start.
God, not on that.
What's
team.
he worth right now?
A ham sandwich?
I'd throw if I have multiple seconds, I'll throw one at him. Superflex league.
I just don't know if people are going to move him for a second because that's what they paid and they've been banking on him being a starter, you know? So
Problem
like,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I just don't necessarily know that. Like if I have Ritter and I got him like at the 209 or 210 or something, like what does that really do for me unless it's like the 202 or 201?
What about in a 12 team? What about the 206?
I don't know if people are gonna move it. Like move
Oh,
him
I'm saying for
it.
you personally, not people. You personally.
Oh, I would. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I would give it a go. Just, I mean, getting a quarterback that at least has some. I mean, at the 206, what are you really getting? I don't know. I don't know the draft class. I don't know if it's super deep.
Yeah.
But every year we think it's deep, and
You
Then
have
we get
you have
talked
a
out of it.
reasonable, yeah, you have a reasonable shot of a little arbitrage move here at the end of the season. You know, you throw your 206 at it. If he has a couple of really good games, you get somebody who, again, maybe they're rebuilding and they want to secure somebody who's shown it. And okay, great. Maybe you bump up earlier in the second round, or you get another player that you want for next year that the 206 wouldn't have afforded you.
And that's my thing. I almost think getting Desmond Ritter off your roster now is the move, because we've seen the way Atlanta runs their offense. It's not exactly what we would call quarterback friendly. And I think that, once a couple games comes and he's, 13 for 18 for 160 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions, a couple of those type of games, you're not going to be able to get anything for him. So, and I don't think it's necessarily a Desmond Ritter talent thing. I just think it's we've seen this offense run for 14 weeks now. We know what it is. They drafted pass catchers, but don't want to use them. So I can't imagine that Desmond Ritter is the key to unlock it. But listen, I also didn't think Brock Purdy was going to be the key to unlock the 49ers. So maybe I'm dead wrong. But it's just,
the coaching's a little different. The scheme's a little different.
Just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, listen, I know you're trying to dump a Desmond Ritter for not, I'll give you a ham sandwich. That's about all I can give you. I need points. I'm running with Daniel Jones and nothing else at quarterback.
Oh, and you're playing Aaron, and his team's solid.
Is that who I'm playing?
Yeah,
Yake and bake.
All right. Well,
see, you're up against Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook.
Whoa.
Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, that's a really good team.
You should probably take a Desmond Ritter to guarantee yourself another 15 points somewhere.
My man, I don't know if you're looking at standings right now. I was the 3rd highest scoring team this season. No joke here. There's I need an upgrade. I don't need I don't need a
You're saying Desmond Ritter is not a potential upgrade over Sam Darnold?
He's probably not an upgrade over whoever I put. And by the way, I think Sam Darnold has done okay the last couple of weeks. I know we want to disrespect the great name of Sam Darnold here, but I can't allow that to happen. He's been okay the last couple of weeks.
Yep, 13 points last week.
Hey.
When did you get Stephon Diggs?
I made a trade during 2 years ago draft. I traded. That's right.
Did you do the 108 or whatever?
Yeah, and I got me a little Stephon Diggs. So that's what I do. I don't need picks. I'll just get a Stephon.
You just need them so you can trade them.
Right. I'll just get a Stephon Diggs with that. Hey, by the way, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm going to, since Drew was trying to denigrate my team by putting Desmond Ritter on it. I did beat Sonny this week.
You did.
11
I saw that.
11-3, Sonny. I know how to put wins together. I mean, sometimes you need Sam Darnold in there to put together a win. You know, we all do things we're not proud of. That's what I had to do. But no, I'm actually like, I'm really kind of lucky with this team that, yeah, quarterback is not good. I mean, I had Jacoby Brissett for most of the season, and I know that, you know, that didn't win me a bunch of games, but it was nice to have a competent quarterback in there. I had Zach Wilson. We're not going to talk about that. But Daniel Jones has been all right, but you know,
would you rather have Zach Wilson or Desmond Ridder right now on your roster?
Oh my God.
I'd rather have Sam Darnold. That's who I would rather have. But yeah, you don't have anything, do you? Not a tight end running around that can score points.
A what?
Oh,
Unlike the Lions.
do we play with that
Who needs
position in
them?
this league?
I thought they were optional. 0 to 3 was the position requirement. I thought I saw in the bylaws.
So you went with 0. All right, good work by you.
Yeah.
I do have Garrett Wilson in this league too, by the way.
You do. You have some good receivers there.
My receivers are not bad. My running backs aren't bad either.
What's Zach Wilson worth right now? Like for real?
I mean, I would send a third just to have him on my roster and see if he gets another chance somewhere else.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, a third. And
Maybe
I
a
honestly,
third this year and a third next year or something.
Oh, you too rich for my blood. Hey, do you want Zach Wilson? I'll take a couple of that.
So I'm just looking up some trades for him. Like and December 4th, there was a Zach Wilson for Jordan Love.
That was that
Desmond Ridder for Zach Wilson in a second and a third.
Oh my God.
Hey, I'll take
That answers
Desmond
that
Ridder
question.
for that price. You give me
Zach
a
Wilson
second.
and Brock Purdy for a second.
Oh, that person is loving Brock Purdy right now.
Zach Wilson for nothing.
Wow.
Like somebody
That was a
literally
mistake.
just traded Zach Wilson.
They were like, "Here, you can have
Yeah.
him. I need the roster spot."
I'm going to drop him.
Yeah. So like it was interesting because I made a trade today. I offered a guy somebody for his first and Zach Wilson because I'm just like my team needs some quarterback, like a quarterback. So I'm willing to roll the dice on it, you know. And he's like, "No, you're gonna need to add to it." So I'm like, "All right," and so he wanted like a shit ton on top of it. So then I go back and I go, "All right." He obviously values Zach Wilson a lot more than, so I give him the same offer for his first and then Zach Ertz, and it's a 2 tight end, start 2 tight ends, and he accepts it immediately, and it's like, so the difference, like, what's the difference between Zach Wilson?
So what was the final trade?
A first and Ertz, instead of a first and Zach Wilson.
Okay.
And a start 2 tight ends. So I
tight
just
end who might have one more season left in him.
Yeah, I mean, like even if I get one season out of him, even if I don't, like I mean, really, what's the value difference between Zach Ertz and Zach Wilson?
Right.
Like, I bet you I get more points from Zach Ertz next year than
Facts.
than whoever has Zach Wilson. So
Facts.
it's interesting how if you figure out like somebody's just totally overvaluing a certain player, find a workaround, you know.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I know, Josh, we said when we jumped in the room an hour and 40 minutes ago, we were going to do a quick show here.
Sorry.
So I know you've been, your family's been
I said I was
going
to be on here for like 15 minutes.
No, it's been awesome. So glad that you're able to come by, Bill. These guys, for those of you who haven't been with us for a while, you may not know that Josh started this whole thing, got Bill involved for first half of our run here. And I was lucky enough to kind of stumble into the podcast through a couple of mutual connections, and then ultimately had a chance to swap out with Bill here a couple seasons ago to join Josh in this journey here. And we're going to take a couple of weeks here in between for the holidays. We'll do a wrap up for the entire season and see who won some championships. I think we're going to do a good, bad, and ugly for the whole season, and we'll reflect on a couple of the bets we've made. We'll go back and look at some of our calls earlier on and see where we get it right, where were we way off. So we'd love to have anybody join us here again as we kind of head into the new year. We'll take a few weeks off. We may pop up, either Josh and or I may pop in periodically up until we kind of figure out where we want to take this thing into March and April. But I just want to say a huge thank you to you guys for including me in this along the way. It's been fun to be in the leagues with you guys and chats, and love bouncing ideas off each other and getting your opinions on different things, whether it's trades, whether it's, we all commish different leagues, so different bylaws or how we'd handle something. So get yourself a community like this in whatever you're doing, whether it's fantasy, whether it's, you work outside of work, find some folks that share similar interests and have some passion behind it. And, most importantly, care about people, have fun with them, and hopefully are pretty good at what they do as well. So incredibly lucky to be able to have a pretty good run here with you guys. So Josh, if you want to close us out here, and Bill, hang around for old time's sake.
For the after hours portion of the fantasy timeline. Nah, man, it's been crazy. Bill and I started this for
Is that 3 years ago?
Yeah, November it was 3 years. And it was just two friends talking about what we saw on the timeline, and then Drew, you came along because you were a friend, and we just kept the same thing going. We're gonna do the season wrap up. We're gonna do all that fun stuff, and but thank both of you, because honestly, I come on here, I have a lot of fun. I say reckless things, and then you guys come with the big brain energy, clean it all up, and make me seem just slightly smarter than I actually am. So on that note, thank you to everybody in the chat. Jesse was in here. We had Steve Dennis earlier. Jesse wanted me to know that Darnold has Detroit this week, so that means he might get 14 points. Let's go, Sam Darnold. 14 points. But Lindsey Kennedy was also in there, a bunch of people. Thank you so much. When the chat is bumping, it's always better for us. And listen, if you're doing a podcast thing, thank you too. 1 hour and 40 minutes, that's a lot of time. You could literally be doing anything else, but you've decided to listen to three of the best friends that anyone could have talking fantasy. So on that note, Drew, we are out of here.
Late.